Okay, we're here with Cameron Stewart, Vice President of Sales at eFile Cabinet. Thanks for taking the time to help us out with this project.
Happy to.
So Cameron has a lot of experience in sales management, about 20 years. You've been a VP of sales for a couple of different companies, is that right?
Four.
Four companies, so mostly in software?
Yep, software and services primarily.
Okay, so you've got quite the track record, I know, of taking companies, sales organizations, and I know in some cases you've doubled revenue, tripled revenue over a series of just a few years. So you've had a ton of success in managing and creating sales organizations. So I really wanted to ask you a little bit about your secret sauce of what is the most important thing about training a sales organization.
I love that question because I'm actually a huge believer in training. Always have been. I've actually worked for two different companies where a part of our offerings and our services we were selling was training, so it's an easy thing to get passionate about. Really, in my mind, there's three different topics and types of content that should be provided to any sales organization, and it really is around three things: culture, process, and product. Every salesman person, in my opinion, has to have a really deep understanding of all three of those different worlds. Culture, from an aspect of culture, I'm a big believer you can't not have a culture in a company. So you might as well take the opportunity to actually dictate and control what that culture is rather than letting it just kind of develop. As a leader, you have the opportunity to set that tone and set those expectations, especially with new hires as they come in. We used to love to create an actual culture training that says, this is just the way we do things here. Welcome to our company. We used to phrase it as, we're just going to go ahead and just save you all the politics and the whispering and the kind of the observations. We're just going to give you the answers to the test and tell you the things we like and the things we don't like, what we value, what we don't value. And we'll just spell it out and say, these are the things we hate. We hate drama. We hate politics. We make fun of this. We da-da-da-da. We have a mutual level of respect for each other. We share ideas. We don't take things personal. These are the things, this is just how we work. And so those are the things I think you can set a tone really early, and people typically just conform to that. And as soon as they learn that and they go out and start interacting with the team and they see that the team emulates that, it just reinforces it and it starts to breed kind of within itself. And now all of a sudden that culture starts to take on its own life. And so anything that's contrary to that culture, somebody that shows up and is hyper political and constantly negative and constantly consumed with barriers and constraints rather than solutions and opportunities, they really quickly stick out like a sore thumb. And those are the people that are easy to spot and able to either try to coach and correct or cut if necessary, because the culture is that important. So training on providing content around what the culture of a company should be is, I think, mission critical to any sales organization. And in some cases, I like to paint the picture of, here's the corporate culture, but here's the subculture within sales, because every division or group within an organization has its own little subculture. So just spell that out as well. Saves them months of having to just do research and observation and just say, I will just tell you, here's how we roll here. And usually for that point, they check the box and they can move on.
So what are some of the delivery, the modes of delivery for that type of training? Obviously with your leadership, it's one-on-one, you're coaching, you're setting that tone, but is there formalized training? Is there content? Are there things that, e-learnings? What are the ways that you deliver that concept of culture?
Yeah, because it takes both. You have to be able to not only see it, whether it be in a PowerPoint or a formal presentation or a booklet or a workshop or in a classroom. It needs to be delivered, but then it has to be exemplified also. Stupid, silly things, right? So for example, one of the things that we said was taboo is we don't do drama. It's just, we don't have time for it. We're just professionals. We don't do drama. So to reinforce that out with the sales team, we actually created a drama jar. And anytime somebody did anything dramatic, you're being just dramatic, right? They had to put $1 in the drama jar just because it was just, everyone would just make fun of it and they would stand out and people would catch it. Or so any of those types of things on the floor. And I love to use humor as a way to be able to reemphasize that on the floor as well. Of like, look, these are the things we value, these are the things we don't value. That I think reinforces, okay, not only do you preach it, but obviously you guys practice it, but you do it in a lighthearted way so that it doesn't seem so heavy-handed.
Mm-hmm. So what is your approach? I mean, you've got culture, product, process, It sounds like, I mean, there's a lot of ongoing training. What is your approach? Like, what is the most important piece of that training? Is it the onboarding? Is it the ongoing training? Is it the accountability piece? I mean, what is the most important part in terms of where you deliver that training in the life cycle of the salesperson?
Well, I've always believed the onboarding is the most, even though probably the easy answer is they're all important.
Yeah.
But I actually think the onboarding, because they're so impressionable. A new hire, we've all been that new hire. You sit down and you're like, okay, so you want to conform, you want to fall in line, you want to, be valuable out of the gate. You're going to tiptoe and make sure you don't, ruffle any feathers out of the gate. You're just in this really kind of innocent, impressionable stage. So that is the time, in my mind, to set really clear expectations, because I think they take to it so well. And then obviously without the follow through and without the accountability components and the additional reinforcement, it loses its luster. Training's like spinning nickels, right? It just requires constant flicking, otherwise it just slowly starts to wobble and lose momentum, and so you're constantly needing to keep that momentum by flicking that nickel. But I think the onboarding component sets the tone, because they're at their most vulnerable, impressionable state, and it gives you a real head start to get it deeply rooted, and then to be able to kind of reinforce it from there.
Okay. Now, I know you've been a part of different organizations, different sizes, very large sales organizations, some that you've started from infancy. And this answer probably varies, but who should be delivering this training? I mean, is this a sales management thing? I know as a vice president, you can't always be the one who socializes this. Is it HR? Is it marketing? Who is it that really owns this training?
So that's been an interesting wrestle for me in my career, because I'm really particular on who presents things. And there's been some circumstances where the trainers, I don't have a ton of confidence in their presenting skills. They're good with people and they're good talkers, but there's certain components, like culture, for example. That's something I've always done personally. I think it needs to come from the highest person that you can have in the organization, be able to deliver that, so that they get the sense, okay, wow, this is something that matters, and this is something that from the top down is emphasized. I think it loses its luster if it's Joe the trainer that's just saying, hey guys, here's the thing that is important to us. You're not trying to impress the trainer. You won't see him after a week from now. But you're trying to impress your boss's boss's boss. And so I think oftentimes it carries more weight. So those particular sections, like around culture, I think it should come from the very top of the organization. You get into process, I think that's probably more appropriate from a trainer, or even ideally from certain elements of that from the actual sales management, because the sales management can talk through all of the variables of, look, I get it. Sometimes there's elements of the Wild West in sales. There's a bunch of variables. There's things that change. There's different dynamics. So look, I'm going to account for those as I'm talking you through. Here's all the processes and policies and procedures we follow and why we follow those. And sometimes it seems to stick with a sales management, because that doesn't give the rep the opportunity to say, this trainer doesn't understand what's realistic, or they'll never do that, or yeah, sounds good in theory. Sales managers, I think, can speak with a different level of credibility. And then when you get into the product, it really can be the trainer, and it should be the trainer that just is really an expert on the product itself and can train them on that.
Do you think salespeople are harder to train?
Oh, no question. Well, because salespeople by nature typically have pretty healthy egos. They think they're smart, and I think that's one of the things that makes them good salespeople. So, and they love to compare their own frame of reference and experience to what you're telling me. You have to sell salespeople on everything. You can't just lay out a new plan and a policy or a comp plan and say, this is just how we're doing it. You can do that, but it's going to come at a heavy cost. That's why the sales management, I've always said, your job, 80% of your job is sales. You're selling humans all day, every day on why they should do things the way that they should do them. And it's exhausting, because like a child, they're going to ask why, and well, isn't there a better way? Well, that doesn't make sense. Well, he didn't have to do it. It's no different than parenting, but you're literally still having to sell them on, here's why it works. Do you understand? And I sense you have a concern. Obviously, you don't feel really good about it, and you just have to talk through it. It's exhausting, but to get people truly bought in, and an army of people that are completely aligned and their arms locked, it's worth the time. It's worth the headache, because it's too critical not to just have people not bought in and just doing it when you're looking and not doing it when you're not.
Awesome stuff. Hey, I appreciate you taking the time. I'm gonna ask you one last question. We got about 60 seconds.
Okay.
What's the future bring of sales training? What is the future of sales enablement? Where's it going?
I hope, based on the nature and personalities of salespeople, I hope that it's more interactivity, elements of gamification. Salespeople are conditioned for just quick, hard-hitting, interactive components to learn. Their learning style is just, it needs to be different, it needs to be edgy, it needs to be to the point, it needs to kind of be compelling and force them into an awkward position where they have to really think, and there's a real art form to that. So I'm hoping that the level of interactivity and the use of media and the elements of gamification are really the future of sales enablement, in order to keep salespeople engaged and actually put them in a place where they can now apply it on their own without as much reinforcement.
Awesome. Cameron, thanks very much.
Anytime.
Very helpful. Appreciate it.
Happy to.